What's the worst thing someone tried to correct you about something you're specialized at? You wouldn't believe the number of times people tried to tell me that people only become diabetic if they eat too much sugar and insist they are right. I'm a type 1 diabetic, diagnosed at 14 months. Was I drinking soda from my bottles and using ring pops as pacifiers then? I hear so much stupid, unsolicited stuff from people about my T1D. One time a guy told me that if I eat an alkaline diet, my body would become alkaline and kill the diabetes virus inside my body. I then told him that that's not possible since type 1 diabetes isn't caused by a pathogen, but is an autoimmune disease, and that it's also pretty impossible to make your body more alkaline, because your body has pH buffers, and that if it does become more alkaline, it's a medical emergency. Then he just started spouting stuff he heard on TV without listening to anything I said. The diabetes virus. Body become alkaline. I have never wanted to slam my face violently against my wall more strongly than now. I'm not really specialized, but a redditor tried correcting me about the geography of my country, Norway, claiming that it was very much flat like all the other Nordic countries. And he refused to believe me when I told him that it's the opposite and it's filled with mountains. Someone thought that a country with fjords was flat? You don't understand. The whole earth is flat. Just, what? Denmark is the only Nordic country I'd call flat. Sure, the southern parts of Sweden, Skåne, is pretty flat as well, but that's far from the whole country. Finland is also pretty flat, at least compared to Norway. I live in Holland, trust me it ain't flat, my country is. I'm a climber. People tell me to wear gloves all of the time. There is a form of climbing where gloves would be somewhat acceptable, although even then a bit questionable. But in free climbing, bouldering, you cannot wear gloves, because your fingers actually allow you to grip onto smaller pieces of rock. I totally get you. Got asked that question too a few times and then offered the people to join me and wear gloves. One person joined me once and tried it seriously with those thin woolen gloves, and she realized she had been wrong. She is now my reference person if someone asks the question again. Oh, she used the wrong type of gloves. It will totally work if I use these gloves. Breaks out the infinity gauntlet. Thin woolen gloves. How did she expect to grip anything with those gloves? I studied history at uni and worked for a while as a tour guide in Prague, Czech Republic. I had a customer once on a walking tour of the city go really snarky with me because I called the river running through the city the Vltava. He declared to the whole tour that that wasn't its name. I asked him if he'd heard it referred to as the Moldau, as that was the German name for the river during the Habsburg era when German was the official language, but he said no, and was I stupid? The river was called the Danube. I pointed out to him that the Danube doesn't run through Prague, and asked if maybe he was thinking of Brno. No, he had definitely read in a guidebook that it was the Danube, and why the hell was he paying money for this tour if the guide didn't even know what the river was called? At which point another tourist in the group showed him her guidebook where it clearly said Vltava. Then another showed him a map, and another showed him another guidebook, and so on, until the whole group had basically showed him what a twaza he was being. He didn't apologize, of course, but at least he shut up for the rest of the tour. I'll admit, I also thought that river was the Danube, but looking at the map now I see that it doesn't even run close to Prague. I wonder how people come to that misconception. As another former tour guide, I'll venture a guess. People mistake Prague for Budapest. You and I remember Budapest very differently. We're a long way from Budapest. Mayo, he deserves it. Asked to do the rear brakes on a classic Vespa. I think it may have been a 200 Rally, not sure. It was decades ago. So the owner and his pal turn up with the scooter. I loosen off and remove the rear rim and tire, loosen the hub nut and go to put the rear rim and tire back on. Oh hey, wait a minute mate, what the f are you doing? I'm getting the hub off. Not like that, you're not. So I tell them I'm going for a cuppa and a smoke and I'll be back when they've removed the hub. 4 hours. 4 bloody hours they were at it, hub wouldn't budge, not 1 millimeter. Getting bored I go back to them, put the rim and tire on, screw in, and tighten 2 wheel bolts and using a mallet hit 3 times in one point. Then 3 times 180 degrees opposite, rinse and repeat 3 or 4 times, whole rim, tire, hub assembly lifts off. I charged them half a day labor for a 30-minute job. I'm majoring in archaeology. I had a guy start talking to me about dinosaurs. I correct him and say it's a fairly common misconception, but paleontology and archaeology are 2 different fields and I'm studying humans, not dinosaurs. He doubles down and insists I need to know about dinosaurs, because what do you do if you're digging up ruins and find a dinosaur fossil? Call a paleontologist? He smugly tells me I'll be useless in the field if I don't know about dinosaurs and I better start registering for paleontology courses and leaves. I still don't know about dinosaurs. My friend told me that she's taking an archaeology course next semester and was hyped to learn about dinosaurs. I told her that I didn't want to burst her bubble, but that archaeology was about people stuff, not dinosaur stuff. She said I did burst her bubble and that if I didn't want it I should have been quiet. I should have let her be excited, lol. Better than if she had asked when do we learn about dinosaurs in front of 50 classmates. I took an archaeology course and the first thing the professor did was explain the difference between paleontology and archaeology. Evidently, it's a very common mistake. Also, half of the class didn't show up the next day. What do you do if you're digging up ruins and find a dinosaur fossil? Call a paleontologist? Yes. Because they're the expert. In fairness to this guy, I don't think he, and a lot of people, realize that fossil beds and archaeological sites are not usually in the same places, or at the same depths. I guess they assume all old stuff is in the same place. 1855 2 men preparing to leave a settlement. Okay Harry, time to move on. Let's just toss the stuff we aren't taking with us on top of the dinosaur bones. A guy that considered himself to be a music maven tried to correct me when I mentioned Beethoven's 9th Symphony, Ode to Joy. He insisted that J.S. Bach composed it when, in fact, Bach never composed any symphonies, not to mention that Ode to Joy is one of Beethoven's most famous pieces. I have a degree in music performance, in low brass instruments. I can transpose most other clefs on the fly, which is an important trait for a gigging musician. I now have another career, but I come out during wedding season, holidays, and to cover/sub for local professionals. I was at a gig playing trombone and reading a lead sheet written for flute. Trumpet player kept missing a dB. We stopped rehearsal and he tried to tell me I was playing the wrong note. I told him that the note was dB and he was playing D natural. He tells me that I need to learn to transpose. I had to tell him that low brass instruments don't transpose E parts, we just read them. A dB on flute is a dB for trombone. Dude still argues with me for 5 minutes. Even the piano and guitars were telling him. He insists he has a written ebb. Know it, homie, your ebb sounds a dB and in any case you're still missing the note you think you're supposed to be playing. I have a friend who is an amazing musician. In high school I played the flute and he played whatever brass needed to be filled in. One day he walks over and starts playing my piece. Zero effort, didn't need to write down the transposition or anything. I was in awe. Until he told me it didn't take any transposition. I thought he was a genius. So he thought Bach composed Beethoven's 9th? Does he need a shovel to lay down the bar for stupid? I'm a food scientist. So this happens basically all the goddamn time. One person insisting that message gives her terrible migraines. She was eating pizza at that exact time. Someone insisting that you should drink apple cider vinegar to alkalize your body to prevent diseases. I point out that's an acid. He insists it's not. Apple cider vinegar. Another person telling me how agave nectar is so much healthier and how I should replace all the sugar I eat with it. I tell her it's just a fructose, glucose mix and you might as well use corn syrup. She got really mad. Like irrationally mad. There is so much misinformation about food that this is basically constant for me. Nah, acetic acid is definitely basic. Why would you think the acid is acidic? You know what's basic, Karen? Your rich ass. That's what. The message thing is hard for people to let go of and I don't get it. It's not like migraine triggers are really tested beyond I ate this thing and I got a migraine. And message was a popular scapegoat at the time that I had my migraines. They assumed, because fried food triggered a few, it was message. Years and years later I realized it was specifically a sensitivity to canola oil. I can't even be in a kitchen when someone cooks with it without getting a headache. It was that all along. Message being the devil is basically the vaccines cause autism of the food world. Not to mention, alkalizing your body is not really possible, and if you could do it, you'd die.